Who is even starting for the Titans at wide receiver? We're going to discuss that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. Want to dive through the Tennessee Titans depth chart on offense and defense over the next two shows. Today, we're going to start with the offensive side of the ball. What does the Titans starting lineup look like right now? And what does it mean for the Titans going forward? We're going to start with the pass catchers here because that's the most interesting place for the Tennessee Titans. So we'll start with wide receiver and tight end. Before we get into it, I want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content on all platforms all year round and always for free. Make sure you get subscribed and stay subscribed to the Locked On Titans podcast, where it's your team every day. At wide receiver, the starting lineup for the Titans right now, and we'll just call it what it is, a 3 wide receiver starting lineup, because that's what really matters here. You got Treylon Burks. Okay, feel pretty good about that. But that's kind of where the good feelings end, because your second starting wide receiver right now is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. And I've said my piece. I've talked a ton about NWI and how I feel like he should be slotted on this team. But right now, it's just not the case. He's 2 or 3 spots higher on the depth chart than he needs to be. Now, the Titans slot receiver is Kyle Phillips. I sure hope that Kyle Phillips can stay healthy and play, because, I mean, this is a disgrace. Honestly, it's a disgrace saying what I'm saying right now. Treylon Burks, good. NWI, Kyle Phillips, I mean, it gets worse after that. Some of you guys are so high on Racey McMath. It's just not going to happen, guys. Reggie Roberson, I mean, he's practice squad level guy. Mason Kinsey, I'm not even going to get into Mason Kinsey. You guys know exactly what he is. He's a practice squad player. So you got 3 practice squad guys even on the roster right now coming back. And then you got Treylon, NWI, and Phillips. That's the worst group in the entire NFL. It simply is. So if the Titans don't do something to fix that, whether it be add a veteran in free agency and draft a rookie, draft 2 rookies, they need 2 moves at this point. A trade for a better veteran that's available on the market, and then adding a rookie high in the draft. Either way, if they do that, then maybe they are able to salvage the group. But if they don't do 2 of those moves, if they just get a rookie in the draft and they don't really sign any veteran of consequence until we get into the summer, then you know that the Titans are waving the white flag and saying, we simply couldn't fix everything this year and we decided to neglect wide receiver. That's the position that they decided to say, hey, sorry, we can't really do this right now. So if they do, then all right. At least they're being honest and telling us the truth. But telling us that they're trying to get better and they want to compete for wins and all that while having that at wide receiver, I'm not going to be able to buy that. Simply not. But at tight end, there's a glimmer of hope, and it is Chigga. Now, outside of Chigga as the starting tight end, things are ugly. Because if you want to look at the Titans' offensive group as like their starting group as 2 wide receivers and 2 tight ends, well, it may look even worse than it did with 3 wide receivers, because Kyle Phillips is certainly a better player than Kevin Rader. But right now, the Titans would have Treylon Burks, NWI, Chigga, and Kevin Rader. And my God, I mean, that is ugly. That is why I've continued to bang the drum that not only do the Titans need to add a tight end in the draft and a really good tight end group, but they need to add another veteran in free agency. They need a Jeff Swaim third tight end. That's what they need. They have to add that at some point because other than Rader, behind Chig, all they have is Thomas Odukoye, Justin Rigg on futures contracts. I mean, that's not going to get it done. It's simply not going to get it done. So we know what the Titans need to do here. This is why I started with these two positions, because the starting groups right here are ugly. They are ugly. The Titans have to know that. They have to know that. And you should be able to get some good mid-round options at wide receiver. You should be able to get a really good tight end in this draft as well. So we have to hope that the Titans are seeing what we're seeing and are committed to doing something about it. If they don't, then like I said before, they're obviously waving the white flag on getting wins this season or really trying to be competitive this season, because you simply can't do that with the group that we just discussed. You can't. So we're going to move forward. We're going to talk about the offensive line, and the offensive line is shaping up a little bit more than this group right here with the pass catchers. So we're going to discuss the starting lineup for the Titans there, what options they have moving forward. Before we get into it, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. And look, it may not be NFL season, but it is the best time of year for basketball. The tournament is coming to a conclusion. The NBA is about to hit the playoffs. And right now, new customers to FanDuel can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets, even if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no-sweat first bet. Then you can wager on everything from the money line to point spread to how many points a guy is going to score, how many threes a guy is going to make. It's all on the app, and the app is safe, it's secure, and it's super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Titans fans, let's continue today's breakdown of the Titans starting lineup on the offensive side of the ball. We just talked about wide receivers and tight ends. Now I'm going to get into the offensive line. We'll finish with running back and quarterback tomorrow. We're going to be going through the defense position by position. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed to the Locked On Titans podcast on whatever platform you do stream so you don't miss any of the Monday through Friday free content that I'll be putting out all year long. But diving into the offensive line group, I think at offensive tackle we have the most answers, or it's as easy as it is anywhere else to actually determine the starters for the Titans. Andre Dillard at left tackle and Nicholas Petit-Frere at right tackle. It's that simple. I mean, both of those guys potentially could kick into guard if something happens, if something changes. That's a possibility. But right now, I feel pretty good about saying that those are the starting tackles for the Titans. If the Titans go into the draft and they get their hands on a DeJuan Jones, a Darnell Wright, something like that, and they want to move NPF inside to guard and then have one of those guys start at right tackle, I'm all for that. If the Titans were to draft Broderick Jones, Harris Johnson Jr., Anton Henderson, and they want to put him, one of those guys, at left tackle and kick Dillard into left guard, I'm okay with that as well. Both of those would be options. But right now, as things stand, you got Dillard at the left and MPF on the right, and I think that I would be okay. I would be okay going into the season with that in place. I don't need to see any changes there. I'm okay with giving that a shot. On the interior, things get a little more dangerous. Now, in my opinion, Daniel Brunskill is more of a right side player than a left side player. He's had more success as a right guard and a right tackle than he has on the left side of the offensive line. So I am going to put Daniel Brunskill as the starting right guard. I would have him on the right side. Plus, he's a veteran with Nicholas Petit-Frere going into his second year. Having a veteran who's 30 years old to be next to him, I think that would be very important. And then you got Aaron Brewer at center, who is still a very young player in his own right. Do I love Aaron Brewer at center? No. I would be okay with the replacement. But the reality is it's going to be hard to replace Aaron Brewer at center and fill the left guard position. Because right now, I don't even have anybody at left guard. Some of the online sites that put depth charts together for the Titans and this and that, some of them have Dylan Radins in there. Radins tore his ACL in week 15, and more importantly, Mike Vrabel does not seem to be a fan of Dylan Radins. I mean, I keep saying this, but Dennis Daly was on the field all year long last year, and it took until week 15 for Dylan Radins to get a chance to play left tackle, just sitting on the bench. So clearly, there's something about Dylan Radins that we're not privy to, that Mike Vrabel just doesn't want to deal with him. So even if Dylan Radins was healthy enough to participate in training camp, there's no way Mike Vrabel is going to hand him a starting guard position off a torn ACL. It's just not going to happen. I refuse to believe it. Maybe it does happen, but I'm going to have to be a believe it when I see it type guy when it comes to Dylan Radins getting a starting opportunity in the offensive line. Mike Vrabel just hates the kid. So I don't know what else to tell you. With that being said, that outside of wide receiver and tight end, that is the most obvious glaring need on the entire Titans roster. There is nobody. I mean, look at your other options. Radins off a torn ACL, Xavier Newman, we know Jordan Roos can't do that. John LeGlue or Zach Johnson. I mean, look, guys, I'm as tapped in to this team as I could possibly. Who is John LeGlue? Who is Zach Johnson? They're on futures contracts, which are training camp invites. But like, these guys are not starters or anybody we can even consider that with a straight face. The Titans do not have a fifth starting offensive lineman. They simply don't. And that's worrisome. Maybe, fine, I'll play the game with you. Maybe Jamarco Jones. Maybe after what happened last year, which was weird, he gets in a fight with Taylor Lewan at practice or an argument or whatever in training camp, gets hurt, we never see him again. Maybe Jamarco Jones gets the opportunity, and you have Andre Dillard, Jamarco Jones, Aaron Brewer, Daniel Brunskill, Nicholas Petit-Frere. Maybe that's the lineup. And right now, I guess, if I was creating one of these lineups, that's who I would slot in. But, man, we haven't heard or seen from Jamarco Jones in so long. I mean, it's hard to even factor him in. So the Titans need to fill that left guard spot. I'm guessing that they're going to be looking to do that during the NFL draft. That makes all the sense in the world. But right now, that is a glaring need. And I'm guessing that a rookie event. I mean, imagine if they plugged that hole with Peter Skoronski. Dillard, Skoronski, Brewer, Brunskill, NPF. That's a pretty decent offensive line. A lot better than what we saw a lot of the time last year. But once again, of course, it is about building depth because the injuries will come. It's the Tennessee Titans. So until that changes, I'm going to expect historic injuries until I see the Titans be able to avoid that. Because right now, they can't. So hopefully that happens, and we'll get some more answers on the offensive line after the draft. But for now, we are going to move forward, talk about quarterback, talk about running back, the offensive backfield. Who are the starters there? It's pretty simple, but there are some more conversations to have before we get into it. Want to thank you guys again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes podcast. From free agency to the draft, salary cap management, and more. Join NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Titans fans, we are going to cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We've talked about the Titans pass catching group with wide receivers and tight ends. We've talked about the Titans offensive line starting unit and what that could look like. Now I'm going to get into maybe the least, I don't want to say interesting because that's not the right word that I'm looking for, but the least confusing, the least questionable group of them all. We know who the starters are at quarterback and running back for the Titans. Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. And barring some crazy trade, it's going to be Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. Now, the question is, what happens after that? Because we know the starters there. There's not really a lot of conversation to have. Not a lot of changes to be expected. But behind Tannehill, Malik Willis, all of the focus will be on Malik Willis. I believe that Malik Willis has training camp. If Malik Willis doesn't get it done and doesn't show that he is capable of being the backup quarterback for this team, the Titans are going to go get a vet. And the Titans, now we'll see under Rand Carthon, but typically under John Robinson, under Mike Vrabel, more importantly, the Titans didn't carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster. That isn't something that the Titans typically like to do. So, Malik Willis better win that backup quarterback job in training camp, or the Titans will give it to a veteran. Like, I really do believe that Malik Willis is on the hot seat right now. And all of you guys that said he's not ready to play year one, he needs a season to develop, that's what I said too. Well, guess what? After you've had a season to sit on the bench and develop, you should be better by your next training camp. Like, we can't say Malik needs to develop. Malik needs time to develop. Well, at some point, it's the NFL. You better be ready. And if Malik Willis isn't even good enough to be the backup quarterback by training camp in year 2, then the Titans don't have time to wait. And no other team is going to have that patience either. You got to be ready to play. You had your year. It's time to be ready to play. So this is a big, big, big stretch throughout these off-season workouts for Malik Willis to prove that he's made leaps and bounds, the type of leaps and bounds some of you guys think that he needed 1 year to make. So we'll see. We'll see, because I would bet that if Malik has a rough training camp and looks rough in preseason, Titans are going to go out and get a veteran quarterback, and I wouldn't be surprised if Malik Willis got cut. At running back, it's pretty obvious where we're at right now. I mean, you got Derrick Henry, but outside of Derrick Henry, all they have is Hassan Haskins. And look, I like Hassan Haskins. I don't think that he's like a running back. I don't think he's a guy who you can give the ball to if Derrick Henry gets hurt. I don't think the Titans believe that either, because when Derrick Henry was out, they brought in Julius Chestnut, and they brought in Jonathan Ward, and they brought in a bunch of guys. Hassan Haskins is great on special teams. He's a pretty good pass protector on third down situations as well, but he's just simply not explosive enough. He's just not. He's not. He's too boxy, too tight in the hips. Yeah, he's a physical downhill runner that if the hole is wide open, he's going to plow through it. But he just doesn't have the playmaking that you need to play running back in the NFL and actually get the ball in your hands. So, to me, Haskins isn't good enough to be running back 2. He can be running back 3 and no more. The Titans have to have that complement to Derrick Henry. And what I would imagine is happening right now is they're telling Dontrell Hilliard, go see if you can get more money elsewhere. Go ahead. Go try to get more money. And when he doesn't get more money, because everybody knows what Dontrell Hilliard is, the Titans will sign him back for $1.5 million, $2 million, and let him be the complement back to Derrick Henry. But what I will say is, the Titans have been sniffing around running backs in the NFL draft. We saw most recently that they talked to Tyjae Spears from Tulane. It's a pretty good running back group this year. And rather than going out and paying Dontrell Hilliard, I wouldn't be shocked to see the Titans maybe take a running back in the mid-rounds who could complement Derrick Henry. I think that would be a smart investment. And Rand Carthon comes from a place where they're a lot better at hitting on running back than the Titans have been outside of Derrick Henry. So that'll be the interesting thing, both with quarterback and running back. It's backups that are the more interesting thing to watch for than the starters. But that's going to do it for me today, folks. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow to break down the defensive side of the ball. A lot of interesting conversations to have there as well. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.